All right, a very good morning and many thanks for staying with us right here on Morning at 10 TV. Moving further, minus shining a light on our sponsors would actually be detrimental. Why? Why would we do that? I tell Uganda is actually one of our sponsors. They're doing the most. You have the U-Lesson app, please. If you are a student somewhere in Kaberamaido, you do not have access to a teacher, but you do have access to an iPad or internet in that regard. You can actually maximize the power of the internet with the U-Lesson app. Continue learning using that app. You don't need a teacher in your midst, only internet, and you'll be good to go. And we also do have Minute Maid, which has since come on board. How did Minute Maid know Romeo Busiku is the biggest fan of Minute Maid? Now they are our sponsors. Imagine that. 3 sponsors on board. Don't forget Inspire Africa Coffee. They're also part of the conglomerate of individuals who are sponsoring this show. So you do have all those partners who want this show to be a reality Monday to Friday to ensure that you get the information that you need to actually conquer your day, conquer your week, vis-a-vis conquer your careers in that regard. Courage Matovo, the acting manager, Gender and Youth Reproductive Health Uganda, has made it to the studio. He's an old friend of mine. We want to talk about access to reproductive health and also education services in that regard. He's going to be talking about how the young people have been grappling during this COVID-19 pandemic. Gladys and also Beatrice were here, and we're talking about how teenage pregnancies have skyrocketed within Kitgum and northern Uganda. For Courage is going to be shining a light on how young people as a whole have been grappling during this COVID-19 pandemic. Not only teenage pregnancies, but access to SRHR, sexual reproductive health and rights information and services during this lockdown. It could have been about HIV, but you were fearful because of you did not want to be discriminated. You did not want reprisal. You could have tried to go to a health center, and then this medical worker showed you attitude. Oh, you're 15, you're 16. How come? You're also seeking help. Why are you indulging in those activities at this young age? Go and bring your mother. There's a reason why this child is coming to this health corner minus the mother. It's an emergency. If you do not help them, a suicide might take center stage. This child, because you cannot handle the shame of going to a parent and telling them I'm pregnant. Yes, this person can actually kill themselves in that regard. Suicides have been taking center stage. So access to SRHR services. Do you, as a young girl, know that you can say no in the event that someone is actually asking for sex from you? Do you also know that if you consent and allow this person, but 2 minutes or 5 minutes into the activity, you can say, please get off, I'm done? Yes, there's quite a lot of information that you really need as far as rights are concerned, as far as information is concerned. We shall actually explore all this with Courage Matovo. Let me not preempt. A very good morning, my good sir.
Thank you, Ramya.
Thank you for coming around. It's been a long time. How have you been? Talk to me.
Been good.
Indeed.
How have you been?
How is everything at RHU? What have you been up to lately? Yesterday I was with Kagumaho and Kandola Daisy. We were talking about the Ask RHU chat board.
That's one of our babies in the era of extending SRHR information to young people.
And what was amazing is that this chatbot has been there for a year. Correct. But we are only learning about it as soon as yesterday or last week. So meaning you've been doing quite a lot in the shadows.
Yeah,
talk to me about that. The last 2 years.
We've been trying to ensure that the package that we are presenting to the public is worth it. We've been trying to, the young people themselves participated in the development of the entire protocol of the content that's therein, because it's an artificial intelligence. So we've been, before you push it out to the public, you need to ensure that it's worth it. It's able to present the right results. When someone types in, am I pregnant? How do I get to know that I'm pregnant? What are the signs of sexually transmitted infections? The artificial intelligence should be able to provide the person with the right information. And so behind the scenes, the young people have really been doing a lot through the year. Yeah.
All right. And we did have the People's Parliament edition in December of 2020. We did traverse Kabale and other jurisdictions, but particularly in Kabale, 7,000 teenage pregnancies that transpired in that area alone. And to me, I was telling myself, well, where we will be in December of 2021. It could have been a more callous aggregation right now. We could be talking about 15,000 teenage pregnancies in one area of Kabale. Talk to me about how young people have been struggling the last 2 years.
Yeah, COVID presented its unique challenges.
Indeed.
In my lifetime, I had just heard of curfew, and my parents were talking about it, and I was
war curfew back in the day.
Curfew, yeah.
Indeed.
And now we're faced with the realities. Schools closed. At one point, we didn't know what to do. Even as in the civil society, I should frankly speak, that before we agreed to take on the new normal approach, the digital, we didn't know what to do.
We all went into a deep state of slumber at some point, I remember.
You know, but at the end of the day, just imagine that young person who really doesn't know. For them, their schedule was wake up in the morning, go to school.
Indeed.
Now going to school has been crossed. So they don't know what to do. You know, Romeo, I know when we were in Kabale, we had, for instance, those huge teenage pregnancies. But I should frankly speak that those are as per the reports.
Meaning there are other reports that were never identified, especially young people who never left their homes.
Right now, as we are speaking about the teenage pregnancies, you know, how COVID has affected young people, at the end of the day, I've not read any comprehensive research which speaks about the teenage pregnancy across the country. You know, if what we are talking about regionalization, but that may not present the right picture. Probably the literature hasn't yet come to my mind.
There is some literature that I was, you know, reading, and they actually say that we did have some 345,000 teenage pregnancies in 2020 alone. Between January and June of 2021, 196,000. So if you had to do some quick mathematics, you're around 600,000 plus cases of teenage pregnancies. If you to tally those who did not go to the health centers.
Yes, you see, if you are to tally those who did not go to the health centers, but remember there are quite a number of those who go silent because when they get pregnant, they get married off. We've seen young people get pregnant. You know, in Uganda, on a number of occasions, a marriage begins with, I'm pregnant. So if she's pregnant, then the parents are like, okay, go to your man.
But of what I've heard is that some of them are doing it intentionally.
Yes.
If I want to marry this young girl, I'm not going to go to her parents and tell them, okay, I have so many cows that I want to give you to take your daughter. What they're doing is impregnate the girl, go into some kind of a mediation with the parents, and you have someone at a very, very cheaper price.
True. I can't say it doesn't happen. It really happens because at the end of the day, we've lost the social, you know, norms at some point. And at times we have this patriarchy where sorry for lack of a better word, but the men are on top of the pyramid and beneath is a woman and then the girls, the children. When the children are growing up, the girls are now becoming the women, the submissive women. So at the end of the day, the man on the top negotiates with the other man because they know that at the end of the day, they are part of us and we are the ones who are taking care of them, so we can decide for their lives. You know, speaking about the rights, young people don't know their rights. Many of them, they don't even know that they can say no.
Power imbalances.
Power imbalances too. Even when there is something wrong that has happened, they don't know where to run. So you realize that in the past we've had incidences of unintended pregnancies, some of them resulting into early marriages, and some are forced. Others are resulting into unsafe abortions. And remember, our law on abortion is extremely restrictive. And so there are quite a number of abortion cases which go unreported. And so, you know...
So the fact that we've criminalized abortion, many of them are going through precarious conditions to undertake the same.
True, and remember in the past 2 years, we've had incidences of closure of many services, you know. At some point, our youth corners, to frankly speak, they went a bit low because, we were uncertain of what would happen if young people are congregating. You know?
As RHU, what is your position on abortions?
As Reproductive Health Uganda, our position on abortion is ensuring that we provide post-abortion care because post-abortion care is legal. It's legal wherever you are. Let a young person not have an unsafe abortion and then we lose the young person.
I see.
Let them, actually beyond even RHU, even if they went into a public health facility, they would access post-abortion care. And so that is where we stand. So at the end of the day, us we start from providing information. And that's why...
Is that a position we've decided to assume, in that if these young girls go through these unsafe abortions, we are only there to help them in the event that things go wrong?
You see, it's not an institutional position, no. That's actually the government position, okay? Though we already have provision for providing post-abortion care, and that is legal.
Yes.
I'm not a legal mind,
yes,
but from our practice, that is it.
And according to the advocacy that we would like to pass on right here, would you advocate for the decriminalization of abortion to ensure safe abortions being executed, so that we do not go ahead and losing more young mothers during unsafe abortions?
I frankly speak that tomorrow, if we decriminalized abortion, probably would reduce the number of young people that we are losing.
Because no one wants to have this conversation, especially the religious leaders.
Yeah, but also we need to appreciate them, where they're coming from. For instance, from the perspective of Reproductive Health Uganda, our approach is provide the young person with information. And that's why normally you've had us pushing for sexuality education, sexuality education, sexuality education. Because at the end of the day, for us, we believe that once the young people have the information, they'll make the right decisions. The decisions whether to protect or not protect themselves will be informed. So they know the consequences, the outcomes, positives and negatives. So at the end of the day, for us, even before you come into dialogue about, you know, post-abortion or abortion care services, yes, we believe abortion should be a comprehensive pack. Okay, it should not stop along the way. That's why I know the law comes in to say, if someone has tried it, let's not lose them. Let's give them the services. But at first, let's provide them with information so that they know that, yes, if I'm growing, then I'll experience the attraction to another person. But how do I manage the attraction to another person? If a person comes and says, hey, Christ, you look extremely handsome, like, yes, if Christ is handsome, how does he absorb the pressure that comes with that? Because that also comes with, at times it comes with demands. You're like, okay, yes, I'm the person. And at times, out of that reaction, probably you may go into negative, you know.
Promiscuity.
Yes, and at the end of the day, you don't have control.
Indeed.
So, can you appreciate yourself the way you are?
Indeed.
Can you say no when you want to say no, and only say yes when you want to say yes? Can you have dreams, and can you strategize to pursue your dreams in that line? So that's where comprehensive, you know, information provision comes in.
Indeed.
Not only focusing on one item, but focusing on a number of things, and that is where sexuality education comes in. Yeah.
We also do know, according to our research, that young teenagers between the ages of 15 and 24 years of age have been the most adversely affected by this problem when it comes to low access to SRHR services, high teenage pregnancies, early marriages. You all find that in the bracket of 15 to 24. Those are the girls, but for the boys between that same age group, they're not as adversely affected, or even adversely affected at all. Why?
To frankly speak, it's something that we need to continuously work on. On a number of occasions, girls have remained vulnerable.
Indeed.
And this vulnerability has a number of factors. You know, if you took the socio-ecological model around yourself, who are the people influencing you? Who are the institutions influencing you? You'll find religion probably pushing girls to be submissive. You'll find cultures pushing girls to, you know, be submissive. In some societies, they say if a man says yes, you should not refuse. You know, so all that is culture, but also when it gets to the flexibilities in the communities, you know, a young person, a young boy is accepted to, you know, to move around the streets and say, oh this, but then the girl is supposed to be home. So when they get exposure, when the young people get exposure, for instance, the boys, they're able to ask questions. They're able to go and actually get that condom. And no one will say, oh, so-and-so's son procured a condom. But if a girl procures a condom, they would say, oh, so-and-so's daughter is promiscuous. She's adulterous. You know, she's a fornicator. So at the end of the day, we push them. The girls have always come to the sideline. And at the end of the day, we don't provide them with opportunities.
Indeed.
Today, we still have communities which don't like educating girl children because they know they'll be married off.
At some point, and they feel like it's futile.
I was in a group recently, a colleague who gave birth, and then someone said, oh, you've given birth to sugar. I had to cause a discussion that, okay, I don't agree with that. You know, that's not sugar. That's the future Lord Mayor of Kampala City.
Indeed. The president.
That's the future president. That's the future MP. So that is how far we have belittled the girl children, and it goes beyond that.
It even translates into their school time, the time they spend in school when they're choosing maybe their combinations and so forth. You tell her, why don't you do this? You have higher chances of becoming a lawyer. Or even the president, she'll tell you, nope, I don't think so. I want something very simple, maybe catering, fashion design, because I've been told that's what I can do.
Yeah, and I think that is totally wrong. But I think it's important that we change the status quo.
Indeed.
Let's come out to frankly empower the girls, because at the end of the day, boys, girls, men and women are all the same.
Now, here's more research we've been doing as NMG, right? And because you did speak about empowerment, and it's really important. But guess the people who are supposed to be empowering our young people are the ones who are actually, violating them. I'm talking about the men between the ages of 45 and 49 who have seen a prevalence of HIV at 14%. They are the ones coming and they are impregnating our young girls between the ages of 15 and 24. Because according to my statement when I said the young girls are being adversely affected, but then the boys within the same bracket are not being adversely affected, you'd think it's the boys violating these young girls. But no. There's this older gentleman who knows better, who has maybe access to SRHR information and services. Is the same gentleman coming to this young girl, maybe because she's too naive, and violating this young girl? How is it possible that the men who know better are the ones violating these young girls? And could it be that low access to SRHR information and services could be the reason as to why they've fallen victim, the young girls?
I don't know how relative knowing can be. But also, for me, I think it doesn't have boundaries, even if it's an adult, whether it's a young person, it is totally wrong, okay? And it's against the rights of these young people. At times, the people whom we think that they know, they practically don't know. Because at the end of the day, you knowing the rights,
Indeed.
It goes beyond you knowing the right, but how do you ensure that you safeguard the person's right? Knowing your rights does not stop you from ensuring that you also execute your responsibility.
Indeed.
Because rights go with responsibilities. When it gets to, for instance, the adults who normally take advantage of the men probably have not appreciated the value addition of respecting and honoring their responsibilities.
Let's empower these young girls by giving them some of this information. What are their rights?
Let's provide them with the information.
What are their rights? They have the right to say no, the right to good health.
Health, information, privacy, the right to decide whether to marry or not, the right, I've already talked about services, accessing services, and services in its the complexity. So at times we even provide services while we are pulling out some. For instance, a girl can access some services, but not others. They can access, for instance, the basic treatment, but then they cannot access prevention of an unwanted pregnancy. And at the end of the day, that's also creating a barrier. At times we are saying, yes, they can access, for instance, they can access information, but at the end of the day, when you invite girls to discuss issues around sexuality, they'll say, oh no, don't do that because you're spoiling them. But at the end of the day, it's their right to access information. At times we say access to their right to education. And at the end of the day, we don't put in place incentives to ensure that they actually go through the education system.
Online learning.
Yes, you remember, and at times I try to fight not discussing online learning because it also has its pros and cons.
Indeed, that's another conversation.
Yes, quite a number of young people are living in places where they don't have power. So you won't have access to the education.
All right.
If it's online.
All right. That is Courage Matovu, the Acting Manager, Gender and Youth from Reproductive Health Uganda. Let me also link to Stephen Imbide. He's joining us right now with another update. A very good morning, Stephen Imbide. What's the latest? Stephen Imbide for that update. Quickly, I still do have Courage in my midst. Well, let's still talk about this conversation. Have we psychologically prepared our learners ahead of this full reopening in 2022? Not only the learners, even the parents psychologically, even the teachers to take on the issue of sexuality education.
Thank you, thank you. I want to, I think it's a challenge to the government and the authorities to ensure that we refocus, you know, the programming, the in-school programming. The colleague has been talking about, you know, some schools being closed. You know, parents at times have they've diverted their priorities. You know, some have put their money into business and they think this is the way to go. The children have been out of school for quite a while, and I agree, some of them have really grown. Their bodies have grown beyond the classes. For instance, if she was small, now she's been home for 2 years. She has had, you know, these nice meals.
She was in senior 2,
you know,
she's now she has to be a candidate now.
She has to be a candidate. Quite a number of psychological aspects. Their bodies have outgrown their classes. She has developed breasts, and probably when she goes to senior 1, she's like, oh, she looks a mama. You
So
know,
there will be that
we've had
discrimination towards this group.
She looks a mama. She has those breasts, and you know, so all that causes a lot of psychological aspects or challenges amongst the young people.
And we need to be prepared.
We need to prepare, and I think as civil society, as parents, as you know, all the children's gatekeepers, we need to do something to ensure that we provide counseling services to the young people. Some of them have touched money.
Indeed.
So if they are studying to get money, they are already into the future.
Indeed. Where do I have to go back?
So at the end of the day, it's important that we prepare.
You also have the teachers
learners
who have been, you know, psychologically distressed. Now we are telling them the mandate of disseminating sexuality education is on you.
You know, and at the end of the day, you know, in the past we used to say the children belong to the schools, belong to the teachers. So it's the teachers to speak to them.
COVID-19 came and
it struck us, and then the realities hit. And we realized that actually, we the parents, we the gatekeepers, weren't doing enough. So instead of shifting the burden to the teachers, I think it's important that we
work with them.
We work together. You know, a multi-stakeholder approach. When the children are at the schools, they are spoken to by teachers. When the children are at home, they are spoken to by the guardians, by the parents. And I think we should not leave it for only one person.
Courage Matovu, before I let you go, do you think it is imperative for us to come up with a new statistic or some kind of research to find out how many of these young girls before the COVID pandemic actually got pregnant when the pandemic struck, and how many of those did not get back into the school system? Let's say if there were like 5,000 young girls in Gombe, how many still came back into the school system in that regard? Is it important to have such information?
I think it's very, very important that we have some kind of assessments. It would be an interesting, actually, research to investigate the numbers of those who rejoin versus those who are there, and actually the reasons why they are not there.
Indeed.
Okay, is it change of school? Is it looking for, you know, work to do because they are ready in the future? So it would be very important for us to try to appreciate the other reasons. But still speaking of school reopening, how far have the students been engaged? The participation of the students into their own affairs. You know, I'm not so certain about the ministry's plan, but for sure I know that there will be COVID task forces within the schools. But I haven't seen any guideline of a sort, I should frankly speak. But I hope that there is a provision for having young people to participate in these task forces, because we cannot say it's for young people unless the young people are there. It's not for us without us. You know, when we are safeguarding the young people, let them be part and parcel. And that is where meaningful participation comes in. The young people's voices matter as the adults.
So what you're saying is that when we fully reopen schools in January of 2022, these young people should know what to do in the event that there's an explosion of COVID-19 cases. They should have representation on the task force and should also be taken through the drills, which you're saying are non-existent right now.
Yes, yes. They should be part and parcel of their entire welfare. Gone are the days when the adults used to say, we've been young, so we know what the young people need. No. The young people are the future and are the present. So you can't say, oh, they are only the future. They are the present. If they're in schools, they are part and parcel. Even that is why for us, even when we are delivering, for instance, programs like our sexuality education programs within schools, we use what we call the whole school approach. And part of the whole school approach is ensuring that even the young people are part. You know, and then the other very important aspect probably that we need to think through is beyond the school environment, what continues to happen outside the schools.
Indeed.
We need to ensure that we continuously engage the young people. Let's link young people to information. Let's link young people to services. But at the end of the day, let's also ensure that the policy environment is favorable. It's important, and I think I want to add a voice to request the stakeholders, the powers that be, you know, to ensure that we expedite assenting to the policies like the school health policy.
National Education and Sexuality Framework.
Actually, the discussion around the National Sexuality Education Framework, it's important that we nail this because all these are for the common good.
Indeed.
So at the end of the day, let's look at that multi-component approach. Let's provide information, let's provide services, let's provide a framework that enhances effective participation of young people.
When you
and
talk
that is
about
through
implementation
policies.
of those policies, I hear you, because even in the school settings, yes, children are being violated by the teachers themselves when it comes to sexual gender-based violence.
So can we empower them to ensure that they speak out on their rights
When it happens.
when it happens? Actually, let's also empower them with the information and skills to identify a risk ahead,
Yes.
so that at the end of the day they are able to act before it happens, so that it is not reactive,
Indeed.
but rather being proactive.
The main conversation right here in Morning at NTV, we should empower the young girls in that regard, because you can only